Oh man, I'm holding something really special here today. This is a collaboration between Massdrop and Beyerdynamic. This is the DT177X Go. This headphone takes everything people love about the Powerhouse DT1770 Pro and brings it in at 32 ohm, which means this is going to be ideal for mobile, and they claim you do not need a discrete headphone amp to take advantage of this, which honestly just feels weird to say out loud. Let's go. Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching Bad Seat Tech, and today we're taking a look at the Massdrop Beyerdynamic DT177X Go. For transparency, these were sent out by Massdrop for review, but as you should know by now, it doesn't affect my review in any way. So yeah, these are obviously based on the DT1770 Pro. Now, I have demoed that headphone in the past, but I've never had the pleasure of owning my own pair. That $600 price tag was always just a bit out of reach for me. But I have spent years with the DT770 Pro, so I'm going to be making little comparisons along the way, but the main goal here, I want to review this headphone as standalone as I can, as if you're unfamiliar with the rest of their line. So we have a passive, over-ear, closed-back dynamic headphone. Build quality is everything we've come to expect from Beyerdynamic, which means these are absolute tanks, and they stick to Beyer's vision of making all the components of this headphone replaceable. The headband is spring steel. The forks are either steel or aluminum, I can't call it. The ear cups are painted aluminum. They're absolutely gorgeous, understated even from the 1770, as these are totally blacked out and debadged with no visible logos. These immediately give the impression of quality. They feel really hefty and really substantial in hand. They weigh in right about 370 grams. They are notably heavier than the DT770. When they're on your head, you are definitely aware that you're wearing a heavier headphone, but they're balanced and they're very comfortable. I feel like they have slightly even less clamping force out of the box than the 770 or the 990. The headband isn't really that plush, but it's still comfortable. No discomfort for me at all, even after long sessions. Out of the box, these have a black version of the velour pads that we see on a lot of Beyer headphones, but they also include a set of really plush, really deep sheepskin pads. Changing out the pads on these isn't bad at all once you know the trick. You can pop this retainer ring off and it makes the whole thing a breeze. They're both comfortable in their own way. The sheepskin pads are going to really increase that isolation, and there's practically like zero sound leak when you're using those pads. Going in, I expected a little more heat buildup in those pads as well. Honestly, it wasn't an issue for me. These will also change the sound signature of the headphone depending on which one you choose. We'll touch on that a little bit more here in a sec. The cable on the 177X Go is a detachable mini XLR. It's straight 3 meters and it's thick. It comes trained to that coil right out of the box. It does take a while before it starts to relax. There is no separate coiled cable included like you get with the 1770 Pro, but the difference here is this XLR is not 3-pin, it's 4-pin. That means you can use this in a balanced setup without having to do any rewiring of the headphone. Sadly, I don't have a balanced amp in house right now. After hearing this headphone, I've never wanted one so badly in my life. And that brings us to our next interesting feature on offer here. This does have the same 45mm Tesla driver that we see in the 1770, but instead of being 250 ohm, it's 32 ohm. That means you can drive these headphones without a discrete headphone amp. And let's just get this out of the way right now. I am floored by how good these sound coming off my Note 9. They sound legitimately powerful being driven off the phone, and that's not something I can say about a lot of audiophile headphones, particularly ones at this quality level. I didn't even have to listen at max volume most of the time, and that's not something I can say a lot either. And as far as amps go, these do sound weightier, more bottom heavy coming off the Mayflower Arc. They actually sound more balanced overall coming right off the phone. This being the first set of audiophile headphones I could drive off my phone also meant this was the first time that I could distinctly tell the difference the different amps made. After comparing the sound from my phone, the Mayflower Arc, and the EVGA new audio, I can say that the Mayflower Arc does sound slightly darker than the other two options. This seems like a good time to talk about sound quality. Before we dive in here, if you're unfamiliar with Beyerdynamic's sound signature, it's really energetic with boosted bass, boosted highs, and slightly to moderately recessed mids depending on which model. It's probably the most fun you're going to have in a studio headphone, with the caveat that the high end has a tendency to tread into territory that may make some listeners uncomfortable. In Beyerdynamic's own notes, they say they smoothed the response slightly from the 1770 Pro, a headphone with the reputation for being pretty aggressive. What I can say is that this headphone addresses the very few, very minor complaints I have with the DT770. First things first, the big one, that sibilance that exists on the 770 and the 990, if it's here, I can't find it. At all, even after hours and hours of music being pumped through this thing across a lot of different genres. Though admittedly, no classical, no opera, no country. The other thing I find that's different here is that U-shaped tuning that's real prominent on the 770 is way less pronounced here. The bass on offer here is more controlled. It's still solid, it's still punchy, these do still deliver that sub bass, but maybe it's just a little tighter, a little more reined in than the 770. And I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to anyway. If you listen to bass heavy music, these are absolute monsters. If your DAC amp has a bass boost feature on it, forget it. The mids here are still recessed, but they're noticeably more prominent than the 770. The vocals are warmer, they're more forward, male vocals are especially textured. This was a welcome change. This makes me feel like these would be more usable as a studio headphone for me personally. With the velour pads, the highs are very forward, they're very pronounced. They push like right up to that line where they threaten to get like a little shouty or harsh for me, but they somehow never manage to cross it. The sound of the velour pads is closer to what I think in my head when I think about that traditional Beyerdynamic house sound. The sheepskin pads change the dynamic. What I normally expect when I go to a set of leather pads is that bass to be bigger, boomier, and the highs to be even more aggressive. And I definitely got some of that, but the high end was really surprising. With these pads, bass takes center stage with the low mids riding shotgun. Upper mids and highs actually get smoothed and pushed back, and the degree to which this happens varies a lot track to track depending on the mix, but it also varied a lot depending on which amp I was using. This was more pronounced on my Mayflower Arc and my Objective 2, and it was much less pronounced on the new Audio and the Note 9. So in the absolute simplest terms, it breaks down pretty easy. If you want highs to be the focal point, go with velour. If you want bass to be the star of the show, go with the sheepskin. And the velour pads lend themselves to a more spacious sound overall. I got a bigger soundstage, and the emphasis on the highs really lended itself to more detail, more separation, and more layering because that low end wasn't crowding the plate. If you're doing studio work or especially gaming, I'm gonna say that velour is the way to go. In terms of gaming, there's even more detail in the high end here because you're not getting that sibilance that you got with the 770 or the 990, and the soundstage feels very similar to the 770 for me. All right, let's wrap this up. Look, I had to try really hard not to gush all over this review. It's no secret that I'm a fan of the Beyerdynamic sound in general, and especially of the DT770. This headphone feels like an upgrade to that headphone in literally every way. And this video, plus the video on the DT770 that came out before this, were both mixed in this headphone. That's a big deal for me because the DT770 is not something I normally used for that application. That means I don't have to reach for any other closed back headphone no matter what I'm doing. So this is now my one closed back headphone for listening, gaming, production work, mobile. Did I mention it responds really well to EQing? This is an incredible, versatile headphone. I'm gushing now, I'm sorry. If I had to find a criticism here, it would be the cable. It's unwieldy, it's got a mind of its own, and the 4-pin mini XLR is not a common cable. You're not just gonna jump on Amazon and find a replacement. Matter of fact, if you know where I can get one, please let me know in the comments below. Massdrop did tell me that they may have a couple options planned for the future. Okay, let's talk price and availability. Pre-orders for this headphone are open right now. This is Massdrop though, so the estimated delivery date for this headphone is December of 2019. I know. I'm sorry. The price for a DT1770 Pro is $600. Sometimes you can find them as low as $500. This headphone, the DT177X Go, is going to have a launch price of $380. That price is going to expire around May 16th or after the first 200 units are sold, whichever comes first. After that, the regular in-stock price of this headphone will be $450. That's not a small amount of money for most people. I get it. I said at the top of this video that this was a special headphone, and after spending a couple weeks with this thing, that's honestly the best way I can say it. Detachable cable, wired for balanced audio, nearly all metal construction. It's crazy to me that I can wear these around town and then wear them right into a pro studio environment or a gaming environment and not miss a beat. These sound phenomenal. I literally got goosebumps from a few of my favorite tracks. I said wow out loud at my desk more than once. I can't imagine what else I would want out of a closed back headphone. Big thanks to Massdrop for sending these out for review. And if you guys happen to be watching this video, is there any chance we could get with Beyerdynamic and maybe talk about doing a 1990 version of these? I will leave an affiliate link in the description below if you'd like to get in on the pre-order. And if you're going to, don't sleep. $380 is a silly deal for these when you consider how much the DT1770 normally goes for. If you got any questions about anything I covered today, just hit me up in the comments. I'll do my best to get those answered for you. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button, and until next time, stay up.